Good morning. How's everyone doing today? Good. All right, awesome. Well, I'm so glad that we get to continue all the great work that we got started on yesterday. The theme of this summit is ideas to action. And so yesterday, lots of amazing ideas. Today, I know we're going to dig in a little bit more to what do we do next. So really excited for that. Before I get started introducing today's wonderful opening plenary speakers, I do want to take a minute and introduce and thank some special guests. Yesterday, we had the 5th cohort of the Academic Leadership Development Institute kicking off, and I just want to recognize all 21 of those faculty and staff from across our campuses in Kentucky who are participating in ALDE. If anyone is still here, please stand. I know I was supposed to say this yesterday, so they may not be here today. All right, ALDE. We also had with us 2 Council on Post-Secondary Education board members yesterday, Dr. C.B. Akins and Ms. Jennifer Collins. They may not be here with us today, but if you are, hello, Ms. Collins, if anybody would please stand. And then I also really want to thank all the CPE staff. So if you are a CPE staff member, please stand. It is quite a feat to plan and coordinate and make this event go so smoothly, and I just could not be more thankful for the amazing team that I get to work with at the Council on Post-Secondary Education. And I specifically want to thank Heather Fazey, Nan Harness, Mary Allison, Gabrielle Gayhart, Phyllis Clark, Beth Ann Collins, Jana Weiss, and Melissa Bell for all of their tireless efforts to make this event a success. Okay, so today I'm confident that all of our sessions will be just as inspiring and productive as they were yesterday. I am especially excited for our keynotes this morning. I don't know if you've ever run student interviews for leadership roles on campus or alternative spring break trips or anything like that, but I used to do this quite a bit. And one of my favorite questions to ask our students was, if you were an ingredient in a Big Mac, which one would you be and why? It's really one of those think on your feet questions. You get a chance to see how people respond in the hot seat and also what's a little taste of their personality. This was 20 years ago, so I don't know if that's even like an appropriate question to ask anymore. But my favorite answer was always those students who would tell me that they were the secret sauce of the Big Mac. Yes. Now, this is the mystery ingredient that you don't know why, but it just makes everything better. And maybe it was because, you ask them to explain, okay, why are you the secret sauce? And, maybe it's their positivity or their collaborative nature, their includer strengths. There's really no wrong answers. Now, of course, you can't have a Big Mac without the bun or the patties. But it really wouldn't be a Big Mac at all without the secret sauce. It would just be a cheeseburger. So anyway, my point is that our student success efforts take a lot of ingredients. They take special leadership skills, communication skills, collaboration skills, and many more. But sometimes our outcomes are not always indicative of the hard work that we're putting in to make those positive changes and move the needle on our campuses. Now, our keynote speakers today are both going to bring you some secret sauce, some special ingredients that will really help take all of our efforts to the next level. They're both in their own right the secret sauce of our collaborative team, with their incredibly unique personalities and qualities that they bring to make our whole stronger than the sum of our parts. But even more relevant to the success across all of our campuses, for all of us working tirelessly to help our students be successful, Phyllis and Beth are going to share these approaches to closing institutional performance gaps and scaling transformative change. I'm not saying this work is ever easy, that there's a silver bullet or a magic money tree, but I'm confident that through intentional design and project management, we can accelerate our progress. So without further delay, I'm very pleased to introduce to you Phyllis Clark, who will kick it off for us, Associate Director of the Kentucky Student Success Collaborative. Phyllis, her quick bio. Phyllis is a 29-year practitioner in the education profession. At the University of Louisville, she served in various leadership roles for diversity recruitment, student success, and retention. As the Vice President for Student Affairs at Simmons College of Kentucky, she provided leadership in areas of institutional accreditation, admissions, enrollment and financial aid, and student support services. She has done it all. As an entrepreneur, Phyllis is dedicated to helping others through the development of professional and academic branding. Phyllis received her bachelor's from the University of Arkansas, Fayetteville, master's degree with an emphasis in educational psychology from the University of Louisville, and is currently a doctoral student in Bellarmine University's Leadership and Higher Education program, almost done. Her research focuses on identifying and eradicating educational barriers for women resulting from the occurrence of imposter phenomenon. Take it away, Phyllis.
Oh, can't have one pair of glasses, gotta have two. Okay, so we do this thing at church called the Sunday selfie. Maybe you go to a church that does that, but I want all of you all to pull out your phones, okay? You all have been active participants thus far, so I want you to do this with me. Pull out your phones, and I want you to lean to your neighbor and take a selfie with that person, if they let you. Lean in. We are having an amazing time at the Student Success Summit, and let's show it to the world. That's right. Get a group selfie if you want. Yes, I see people standing up, holding hands up, thumbs up. Yes, y'all. All right. Now, once you capture that selfie, you see, oh, well, it's not there. It was, but I believe our hashtag is student success. Hashtag student success. And you pop that selfie right out there in the Twitterverse or wherever you engage in social media. So thank you, Lily, for that introduction. And thank you, colleagues, for permitting me to offer a little bit behind the scenes of how our team has worked to center equity across our programs and projects. So as shared, I'm Phyllis Clark, the only child of Phil and Joe, and I'm excited to be here with you all today. One of my favorite quotes, well, I have a lot of quotes. Those of y'all who know me know that I love quotes and acronyms. But the one that I'll share today is a Chinese proverb. The best time to grow a tree, and y'all have heard this, right, is 20 years ago. The next best time is now. So let's plant some seeds, shall we? Now I forgot I have to advance my own slides. All right, there's our team. I think you already are familiar with our team. And yes, I do have that little C next to my name because hopefully in May, we're gonna get this done. Hercules, Hercules. So Lily mentioned in our session on yesterday that our Kentucky Student Success Framework is comprised of 4 very specific areas: connect the path, chart the path, continue the path, and finally complete the path. Today, I'd like to reemphasize that equity stands as a cross-cutting priority, just as it does for our entire strategic agenda. Now, for that to be operationalized within the programs and the projects for which our team is responsible, we had to sit down and spend some quality time thinking about what this means for us as a collaborative that is charged with supporting you all, our higher ed partners. So we wanted to make sure, though, that we just weren't saying that we know what equity is, or that we value equity, that we're passionate about equity, or that we know how important equity is. You know, all the things that people like to utter about equity. Well, that's a given for us. So, but what's the other part? What's the secret sauce? Well, we came together as a team to solidly state together that we must first be equity. Again, we must first be equity so that we can do equity. No assumptions, no guesses, and no gray areas. Beth, Lily, and myself, we thought it would also be critically important to develop our own internal equity principles, as you may have already learned a little bit about during our visits to your campuses over the course of the year. But from the moment that we agreed upon developing these 4 guiding principles, we've continued to improve this process and would like to share a little bit more of this with you today. So if some, all, or just a little bit of what I'm sharing, some of these ideas about our internal process resonates with you, feel free to take notes on the handout, and I think they have put them on the center of your table. Full transparency here. Our internal equity review first took root, no pun intended, during several conversations about what equity means to us. Again, in short, think about it. It's treatment, right? It's not necessarily just the outcome. It's a practice. It's the method of operation over the course of time. It's adjustments. It's considerations. Equity for us is about being aware, being conscious to see what is simply not seen, to examine the intangibles even when we can't put our finger on it, which is why we have to talk and talk and talk some more. We must be willing to ask ourselves those questions, the easy ones, the hard ones, and the ones in between. So just within the last few days, a colleague of mine mentioned to me that a student with which they held a conversation wondered, why do schools like to play around with equity? That was the question. Why does my campus, I feel like my campus is playing with equity? So I got quiet when they shared this with me. I had no answer. And quite honestly, I'm still thinking about it. So I have an analogy for you, all right? Those of you who know me, you probably also know that I play the violin. That was my major in college at the University of Arkansas. And as a former member of a couple of symphony orchestras and a chamber ensemble, I can't help but to think what equity would sound like if it were manifested through music. Y'all want to play with me just for a little bit? I want to try something. Do we really know the truth about what our students think and feel about what we say as practitioners, as leaders, as presidents, as staff of our institutions? So I want you to hold what you're about to hear just in your mind for a few moments, okay? There are, as we already know, 5,000 plus colleges around the nation. And we think highly of ourselves. We are doing this work together. We are making sacrifices. We are being innovative. We are spending. We are coming together. We are being in incubators just like this, right? So here is what it probably sounds like through the tunes of this orchestra. Now, here you're going to hear the Space Odyssey? Raise your hand if you already kind of know what the Space Odyssey is. Okay, great. So you will be familiar with this. There are 13 seconds of silence on the front end. And during that silence, I want you to think about how you feel about equity on your campus, how you practice equity, how you be or become equity in this higher ed space. Okay? And then we're going to hear what that sounds like to us. All right? We're feeling good. We're strong. We're doing this work. Crescendos, decrescendos, emphasis, energy. We are in tune. Look at that face. Yes, this is us. Here comes that climax. Yes. Come on, trombones and trumpets. Okay. I think you know where. Oh, wait, what a finish. Yes. That's how we do it. Yes. I am so sorry if you are attending or listening in virtually, you may not be able to hear this, but I think you know what's happening and what that sounds like. I do need to give credit. That was the Orchestra Nationale de Lyon, and Jean-Marc is the conductor. Now, I don't want to put one orchestra against the other, okay? So this is the same orchestra that is going to demonstrate what our students might be thinking and feeling and hearing. I'm telling you, I could not let that message go about why are our campuses playing with equity. That word play just kind of gets to me a little bit, and I hope it does you. So let's hear this one. We're holding notes, right? We're still playing on the beat. There's movement. There's still leadership. People have all the instruments. There's energy. There's air. There's breath. There's trills. There are notes being played. But sometimes, right, sometimes what our students hear may not be what we're trying to say or share. And so that's what I want you to hold in your mind for another little bit. The CPE definition is, the creation of opportunities for historically underrepresented populations to have equal access to and participate in educational programs. Our own executive director, Dr. Dawn Offit, sitting right here, she's the director of diversity, equity, and inclusion. She will tell you that equity is also about creating equitable conditions all the time, not just looking for that output. And these things have to lead to fair and just experiences and environments. So my question to you is, which sound would your students, all demographics, believe that you make on your campus? Sounds of raggedy dissonance, even though everyone is full of energy and they are counting on the beat and they're looking at the conductor and he's full of energy, or she? Or that you have sounds that work together in concert for the good of all and to the harm of none? Hold those questions and your sounds in mind while I walk you through the 4 guiding principles that we use within our programs and projects. Now, these things are nothing new, okay? I just want you to think about them in a different way. So we have 4. There could have been 6, but right now there are 4. We prioritize student voice. We promote culturally competent engagement. We ensure diverse project teams. And we love disaggregating the data, don't we all? So those are our 4. Maybe you already have 4, 5, 6, and these are similar things. But what we have to do is to continue to talk about them and walk through them and not just say or show them. Okay, so I might be a little bit specific here, but I want to walk through each one of these and just show you what that literally means for us, so that you know when we come to your campus, this is what we're talking about when we say we prioritize student voice. So the first thing we thought would be helpful to us is to create a belief statement. Do you have belief statements around your guiding principles? I know we all have that mission, that vision, that branding promise of an experience, right? But even if it's just one thing, like prioritizing student voice, we all do that. We all believe that. But do we have a belief statement around it? And then have we told ourselves, have we worked with our teams to develop what that means for us? So listen to the student experience, emphasize responsiveness, FaceTime with students, provide speaking opportunities in formal or informal settings, prioritizing student voice. Number 2, you can see our belief statement for this one, but it's important for us to, let's just talk about what cultural competence is. Information, new experiences, things are landing at our doorsteps every single day. New ways to think about things, new things to do, new considerations to make. Do we provide or do we support cultural competence? Do we ensure programmatic recommendations that are culturally competent? I think we all believe this, right? That representation and diversity of thought, all of that matters. But how does it manifest in our work? Our team talked about ensuring teams are representative of the population served, provide regular communications and engagement for all the team members, building trust and relationships within our team. And lastly, reveal disparities and or the equity gaps between our priority student populations. Lots of conversation around this. React to the emerging narrative within our diverse teams. Respond and be proactive in our collective decision making. How are you doing this on 1, 2, 3-person teams? It does not matter. It doesn't need to be a room of 20 people or just your advisors or just upper administration. It's all of us thinking about how we want to manifest and in what way. So there is the family of our 4 guiding principles and what we have lifted high. And as I close, I would like for you to think about, and I haven't even said this phrase, hopefully you could see it pulling together, but equity by design. Here are the questions. I'm so sorry, some of the words may have been a little smaller than what you would like, but I hope you can still see it. But here are some questions to think about. And again, this just didn't happen in one sitting. This is something that our executive director, Lily, brings us together to talk about, to think through our own work. I have been stretched in a number of incredible ways to help figure these things out. And I'm appreciative and I'm so proud, Lily, to be on the team. So what are your equity guiding principles? Think about this. How have we structured our projects to fill these principles? What evidence is presented that each principle was attended to? What are the gaps? What are we not thinking about? What's not here? What's missing? And what are our steps to correct? And the biggest one of all, when will we revisit? How will we revisit? How do we want to think about and make our projects better and the way we put them together behind the scenes? How important is that to us? I know we have to email and take phone calls and attend meetings, but the work on the ground floor in terms of how you put together and how strong your equity by design, keywords by design, are going to be for you and your team. So in the words of equity thought leaders, and you all may know these people, with them, Malcolm Petit, Dowd, and Ben Simon, from their 2007 work on equity by design, and you can easily pull that up. They say being equity-minded thus involves being conscious of the ways that higher education, through its practices, policies, expectations, and unspoken rules, place responsibility for student success on the very groups that have experienced marginalization rather than on the individuals and the institutions whose responsibility it is to remedy that marginalization. So I leave you with that quote, and now I'd like to introduce you to my colleague, Dr. Beth Collins, so that we can keep this conversation going. And it looks like I have left Beth's bio at my seat, but I know, love, and trust Beth, and I already have her bio here in my head. And actually, her story is very, very similar to mine. Thank you, Lily. Dr. Beth Collins is Associate Director of the Kentucky Student Success Collaborative and a 28-year practitioner in the education profession. Over her 28 years in the education profession, Beth has held various leadership roles, including K-12 building level administrator to Dean of Retention Services at Hazard Community and Technical College. Where y'all at? I know y'all are here somewhere. Beth has extensive leadership experience in improving student persistence and retention, providing access and support, transfer, veteran services, institutional accreditation, and convening and facilitating strategy sessions with institutional partners to build their capacity for large-scale change on campus. Beth received her bachelor's degree from Pikeville College in History and Political Science, two master's degrees from Morehead State University. I know y'all are here, yes, in secondary education and school administration, and a doctorate in educational administrative leadership from Morehead State University. Now, to share more about how to get this work done. A continuous improvement approach to improving student success. I give you my friend, Dr. Beth Collins.
So before I start, can we just give Phyllis a hand? You know, I mean, she's awesome. I just have to say, she is really awesome, and it's an absolute joy and pleasure to work with her and Lily and everyone at CP every day. But when you have a team who's passionate about what they do, and Phyllis clearly is that, it's an absolute dream job. So thank you. Thank you. Hi, everybody. So I know you're all wondering, how did I get 28 years and I'm standing here at like 16? But yeah, that always takes me back when I hear that number a little bit. So glad to be with you today and talk a little bit about the work of continuous improvement, especially when it comes to improvement science. And so today's conversation, we're going to focus on, what is a continuous improvement? And how does improvement science within continuous improvement help improve student success efforts? And how can you at your institution start using this approach? Because what I want you to leave here with today is the knowledge that the experts for solving those large-scale challenges, those embedded problems, those wicked problems that you can't just pull one little string and it unravel, are already on your campus. So if you're sitting with your team, look at your team. If you're with your campus, those are your experts, because there's one thing I'm absolutely 200% sure of, is that there will never be anyone as passionate about your student success as the people on your campus, right? So we just need to learn how to think about it different. How do we think differently? Because you can't keep using the same thought process over and over and expect a different outcome, right? We got to try something new. We got to think a little differently about problems. And so the work of improvement and improvement science is the bridge that exists between the knowledge that something can work and the knowledge of how to make it work reliably across diverse contexts and populations. Let that sit in for just a minute. Because the first thought I want you to consider as we begin our time talking today is that knowledge is only a rumor until it lives in the muscle. Let that settle. Knowledge is only a rumor until it lives in the muscle. So how do you build muscle? You do that in improvement science. So what it is, it moves us from institutional paralysis, right? And I'm not that far removed from a campus. It's not been quite 2 years, and I remember this very well. It's, we've tried this and we've tried that, and we know our students, and this is the reason why not. So surely someone who looks just like us, who has our same demographics, well, they've got a solution. Let's try that. So we're going to eliminate some solutionitis. And fear has always failed, right? We worry about failure because it impacts students. It's not just us. So that's how we're going to solve. We're not going to be afraid anymore, and we're not looking for this magic silver bullet. We're not paralyzed, because that's what it's not. It's not a silver bullet, and it's not a simple fix. This takes time, and it takes the willingness to fail and to celebrate that failure, right? Because failure is part of the process. As much as success is, learning what didn't work is impactful. So failure is celebrated. We're going to fail fast, we're going to learn fast, and most importantly, we're going to fail early so that by the time that what we change and what we're working to change gets to scale across the institution, we know it will work. There's no guessing in it. So we're moving away from the perfect project, aka piloting. That's a naughty word, right? There is no such thing as a perfect project. And I'm sitting here saying, do you know how many times I've uttered those words myself? Little self-truth time here. When I was a dean, I was so convinced that Gosh, I'm in the trenches with my students every single day. And I know because they tell me things. What I knew was what the students who came to me told me. What I didn't know were the students I never heard from. But I was convinced that I had the perfect project and I had 16 weeks to prove it. And we had to follow the plan. Gosh, I had so much to learn, and I didn't know that. I do now. And most of those efforts were leadership driven, right? Lots of those conversations came from, mid-level managers, directors, those sort of things, and we floated that up. And, oftentimes where I overlooked was sitting down with the people who were closest and dearest to the students. Faculty, didn't spend enough time with those folks listening, didn't spend enough time with boots on the ground people in admissions or advisors. So we're going to move away from all of that because improvement science begins with those that are closest to the situation and to the problem, and it comes up from the shop floor, which is beautiful. It's nimble, it's rapid. 45 days is not a lot of time. And it's a call to action. You're going to collect data as you go. And it is, again, bottom-up generation of ideas for change. So the vestedness in the work is from the onset. You're not looking to get buy-in. That's also beautiful. So let's talk a little bit about what is improvement science and how does this all work, right? And going back to what I said is that knowledge is only a rumor. You have to develop your aim. You think you know, right? You think you know that this is a problem. And we think we know it because students say it, we hear it from our colleagues, it's in the data. So what does the data say? And it's not necessarily just the numbers. What's your anecdotal data? What is the feedback you get on your surveys? How often do we use these? So review your data. Figure out who needs a seat at the table, who are your stakeholders, and set an ambitious goal in your common aim. Then think about how do you want to move through the process, through the rapid action cycles. Map that progress. We're going to look at a driver's diagram and stay to your 45-day window. There are other formulas. You could do a 60-day window. We have a couple campuses who are experimenting with 60. You could also do 90 days. Collaborative sometimes works with 90 days. It's depending on the subject matter. But the point is, your institution can decide that, right? If it's a challenge and it's something that needs to move fairly quickly, 45 days may be the best fit. However, if it's something that needs more time to mature and the data to be available, maybe it's a 90-day window. So this is a very flexible. Remember, we said that early on. This is flexible. And we want to be reviewing the impact we're having as we go. Because one thing's clear, improvement requires change, but not all change is an improvement, right? And so how do you know it's working? How do you know it's working? You need to be collecting that data. You need to seek to move from surface level to fundamental change, right? You want to eventually go from putting Band-Aids on to suturing up those holes so that it's no longer a problem. We're scaling this across the institution and we're moving the institution along to a new place that will always have a new challenge, but this challenge, at least, we have the data to prove that we've moved the institution past it. And we're going to celebrate our failures. It's a whole lot less to fail in 45 days than it is to fail in 16 weeks. And at the end of our impact, of reviewing the impact, we're going to look to scale our change, and we're going to have a 3 questions to answer. Adapt, adopt, or abandon your change. If what your treatment to whatever your identified problem is worked beautifully, you'd want to adopt that. If it didn't, you may want to adapt it because it has promise. And if you're like, oh my gosh, no, that's way, way off, then you abandon it. 45 days to abandon is quick and it's fairly painless. And so these are our icons that we use when we're now working with improvement science more and more to talk about these other pieces. So the beauty in those steps and those processes is that we're going to take these large, complex problems and break them into bites, right? So maybe our problem is, you know, I love to go to the 25 plus age group because it's a focus area for most institutions now. So maybe the challenge is, how do we get more of our working adults to come in for orientation? We know getting students on a great start by hearing all these wonderful parts of orientation is a best practice. But we can't seem to figure out what is the secret sauce to get them on campus. So we're going to break that into a piece. Maybe it's that we review our survey data and find out that we're holding our orientations at times that they're working, or there isn't childcare available, or maybe it's at some other barrier like a transportation issue. So whatever our data reveals as being problems, we can break those down. And those smaller pieces that we're going to try to work on are going to move very quickly. And if it fails, great. Then we know that in 45 days this didn't work, but we could try this strategy in the next 45 days and see if that moves the needle. Oh, look, it moved the needle for this small group for 5 people. So let's try that with 20 people. Let's try that with 60 people. Let's move it to 100 people. And pretty soon, your small test of change, you're building a degree of belief. Your campus sees this. They see the progress. They see the good work that's ongoing. And now your degree of belief is doing what's called an organic spread. So others are now believing in it and seeing the work. That flexibility, the collaboration, the team building that goes on as part of improvement science cannot be understated in value. We have, for those who will be attending the afternoon session of Connect the Path with Dr. Allison Cadlick and Transfer, you're going to get to hear firsthand from a team in Kentucky how this works. Because it's very interesting how we can all be on the same campus and yet, or within close proximity of each other, and yet conversations and communications frequently are our biggest stumbling blocks. So here's how we do continuous improvement through a driver's diagram. We have an aim statement, which is your overarching big goal. So by 2030, we want to improve retention on campus by 7 percentage points for our 25-year-old plus student population. It's a pretty lofty goal. How do we define those aims? And those statements comes from your data, but I'm just using that one as an example. And so if that's our goal, if we want to improve the retention of our students who are 25 plus working adults on our campus by 7 percentage points, what are the drivers for that change? What things do we know about those students from the data, from our anecdotal comments, from faculty's input, that will move the needle? Those become your primary drivers. Your secondary drivers are the pieces that support those primary drivers, and then you break them down into unique and individual change ideas to see if you can make a change that moves the secondary driver to move your primary driver to ultimately reach your aim. And here's a good example. We've all at some point in our life, or at least most of us at some point in our life, went, gosh, I need to lose 10 pounds. And we know that's true, right? I mean, we've all said that for something. Maybe it's a class reunion, maybe it's a wedding, maybe it's whatever it is, but it's something. So how am I going to do that? I've got a whole year, I'm going to lose 10 pounds. How do I do that? Well, I'm going to cut back on what I eat. I'm going to decrease my calories. And I'm going to exercise more, right? I'm going to cut out some time in my day, and I'm going to burn off some more calories through exercise. Research shows both of those work, right? So how am I going to decrease those calories? Well, you know, I've been known to go out with my friends on the weekend and have a couple glasses of wine, and maybe I'm going out 3 and 4 times a week with my friends and having at least 1 glass of wine. So maybe I need to cut that down. Okay, so I'm going to get a small plate. I'm going to get a smaller plate, and I'm going to reduce the volume of the food I'm consuming by putting fewer calories on my plate. That sounds pretty good. Those 2 things should work. And I'm going to burn more calories because I'm going to use the stairs. I'm going to cut out the elevator. I'm going to go up and down the stairs more, and I'm going to go to the gym more. I could even put up there that I'm going to, you know, spend my 15-minute morning break going out for a walk. Whatever it is that you think will move your needle there as a secondary driver. So my first change idea is, okay, one drink on a Friday or Saturday, no more. Those smaller meals go on those plates. I'm going to use the restroom on the top floor. I'm going to have a personal trainer. I'm going to go to that gym 2 times a week. In theory, would we all agree that should work? Right? Yeah, it should. Except for if on that smaller plate, instead of putting like fruits and veggies, I'm still putting cheesecake and bread and pasta and all those good things. Because even though I'm still using a smaller plate, I'm not making the real change I said I was going to make. So maybe that particular secondary driver for myself, you know, or the change I did for myself, oh, that was a fail, because then I was like challenged to figure out how I could strategically put a little more on the corners and have it kind of fall but not fall. And so it's flexible. If that didn't work, well, that first 45 days, I just found that out. Check the box. Let's pick something different, right? So the point in showing you this driver's diagram is it's very relatable. And it's easy to show how a change idea in theory should work, but in practice may fail, right? And that happens way more than you know when you get into improvement science work. You think you know, but you don't always know. In our second thought I want to let you think a little bit more about is that change happens at the speed of trust. Think about that a whole lot. Change happens at the speed of trust. That's a way different thought than knowledge is only a rumor until it lives in the muscle, right? Because knowledge, when you do improvement science work and you use the data and you flex your muscle and you build your muscle and you get in the practice, and now it becomes part of your culture of how you continuously improve all the good things you have going on campus, because you're always evaluating and you're listening to people and you're engaging your stakeholders and you have all this buy-in. And most and foremost important, you're listening to your students to see if what they're telling you matches what the data shows. You're doing the muscle, you're getting the knowledge, so you know that. But change moving at the speed of trust comes in a couple different ways, right? The trust of your team, the trust of your campus, because you're demonstrating it. People see it, they see the changes ongoing, and they're seeing the feedback reports, and they're listening to the presentations, and they know that it's working. And you can trust the results because you've tried them out, and you tried them over and over, and you've looked at different populations, and you've tried all these ideas. So you know that you've exhausted the list, and your trust and your level of degree of belief is astronomical. So you know that it works. So change moves at the speed of trust. We do this kind of work through what's called a PDSA cycle, right? Improvement science, hypothesis, test, all those pieces that go into that scientific method that we all learned way back in school are captured somewhere in the PDSA cycle, or the plan, do, study, and act. We identify our objective, we make our questions about what we're seeing in the data, we make predictions, and then we move forward with the actual work. And we make the changes, and we're documenting all along and collecting observations. We collect data. We then do the analysis, and we compare the predictions and summarize what we learned. Did we get what we thought we were going to get out of the change? And then once we know those pieces, we decide whether we're going to adapt, adopt, or abandon. So PDSA cycles are, again, very flexible. 45 days, 60 days, 90 days, depending on what you're trying to move. And here's how you measure your work, right? This is an action plan template. At this point, I've gotten really good at writing these, I will just say that. And I'm happy to teach you how to do it. And on your table, on the back side of Phyllis's Equity by Design, you will see the icons that we use for improvement science work or continuous improvement work. If there's something that you a thought that came up during this presentation, please jot that down. My email is readily available to you, and I'm happy to jump on a call and have a conversation about this. But these action plan templates are more about accountability than they are anything else. And they're a way to collect the data that's fairly painless, right? So what action, name it. What are you doing, right? Because at the end of the day, all these action plans can be turned into a playbook, right? And it takes time. There's no quick fix here. You keep your plans running till you come up with a playbook that can outlive all of us, really, that we've tried these things and this worked really well and this didn't work very well. And so it's a living document. So name it, what action needs to be happen, when does it need to be done by, and who's going to do it? Who should have the seat at the table? What did we expect the benefit from this change to be, and how did we measure it? Who owns it, and when's its deadline? Right? And what you'll find a lot of times when you start doing these templates is that the owner can be shared. Because I want you to think about what you saw with continuous improvement and this improvement science and start thinking about how do we, first of all, do some work on our campus with things that are ongoing that we want to improve or areas that we know need some a little love and a little attention. But then start thinking about how do we take this beyond us? How do we work with our sister schools? How do we work, if we're a 2-year, how do we work with our neighboring 4-year? What can we do to continue to build relationships, because those relationships pay such dividends for our students, right? So the action plan template itself, the most challenging thing that I have learned, and I want to share this little nugget with you, is the expected benefits. And you're like, well, Beth, you said right out of the gate, we have to know what we're going to measure. We have to know what we're going to change. You sure do. But you'd be amazed at how much things change in 45 days. Right? So you start out with this game plan and everybody's on board and you know how this should roll, and you're into it for about 15 days. And all of a sudden what you thought you knew was not what you knew. Or maybe it was halfway what you thought you knew. So then what? Because it's the next question most folks ask is, then what? Then you get back together and guess what? You start over. Because failure is to be celebrated. I can't stress that enough. It's not a bad thing to fail. It's a good thing to fail because you can check it off and go, gosh, we know that didn't work. So let's talk about another path that may work. And you move on. You're not vested for 16 weeks. It's rapid. It's quick. And it moves the needle for students. Gosh, I'm right on time. How about that? That never happens. And I was real worried because I love this kind of work. I can't stress enough how impactful this can be. It's truly one of my favorite things to do now. So I welcome any questions you have before I send us on our merry way with some directions to wrap up our session. For Phyllis or I, either one. I can get my colleague to come back up if you have a question for Phyllis. Okay. Seeing none. Thank you. Well, thank you. So let's close out our session and think about some directions, please. And I need you to really listen because we're going to have some folks in here moving pretty quickly. So during our break, the UK staff are going to come in and they're going to put up the air dividers. And you're going to notice there are places intentionally on the floor where nothing is sitting. They're wide. Kind of look bluish gray to me. Those big columns, please do not be standing in those. We don't want to hinder the setup that's about to take place in this room, okay? And if you were in Connect the Path with Dr. Kadlick, you will also be just next door in 212. Continue the Path is in 212B right here. Complete the Path is going to be in 212C. And Chart the Path is going to be on the 3rd floor in the Harris Ballroom. Most of you will be in the same sessions you were in yesterday. And thank you for being here today. Thank you for listening and paying close attention. I know this is going to be a process for you to kind of digest all that. And please do not hesitate to reach out if you have questions. Enjoy the rest of the summit.